Site. I'm your host, Christina Ayanian. And joining me today is NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. Mr. Administrator, thank you so much for joining. Welcome.
It's great to be here.
So let's start with your background. You dropped out of high school. You started a payments company from your basement that turned into a very successful public company. You're a fighter pilot, and now you started a private company training U.S. military pilots. You commanded the first all-civilian space flight and became the first private citizen to ever walk on space. And now you are the 15th NASA Administrator. Congratulations. That's quite a resume.
Oh, I have absolutely lived the American dream. That's why I am so grateful right now to serve my country, repay my debt to the nation, and lead the world's greatest space agency. Like, there are no bad days right now. I love my job.
That's amazing. How is your CEO experience, both on the private and public side, shaping how you're running NASA?
Oh, what a good question. So very lucky, again, been able to lead some very large organizations, kind of more traditional tech, but also I led a defense aerospace company for 10 years. So a lot of experience working with the government in that regard. But I think in the end, it's always comes around to like bringing a lot of people together, a lot of great talent, and getting aligned on hard things to do and taking it from concept to reality. And at NASA, I mean, how fortunate I am to work with literally the best and brightest from across the nation. I mean, this is the agency that did the near impossible in the 1960s, and now we're doing it again. So just feel really fortunate to be able to be here at such an exciting time when we are going back to the moon, and we're going back to stay. We're building a moon base.
That's super exciting. So NASA has been a major driver of the commercial space economy, from SpaceX to Blue Origin. How do you see the relationship between NASA and the private sector evolving over the next decade?
You know, when we undertake and achieve the near impossible, we never go alone. You know, in the 1960s, we had McDonnell Douglas. They built the Gemini spacecraft. We had Grumman, who built the lander that put Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon. And now we fast forward, and a lot of those companies are still with us today, and then we've got some new ones. We've got companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, Stoke, Firefly, Intuitive Machines, so many great organizations, right? So we never go at it alone. There are some things that only NASA probably should be doing because they're extremely hard. We're going to launch a nuclear reactor in space in the next couple of years. We call it Freedom. You know, working with highly enriched uranium and launching a reactor above Earth, that's probably something that's squarely in the NASA camp. And then there are things that we can procure from industry and get it at a lower cost and a better capability thanks to competitive forces. Launch, what a great example of that, whether it's SpaceX, Blue Origin, Stoke, Firefly, Rocket Lab, ULA, Boeing. I mean, this is the healthiest time we've ever been in the history of America's space program for a launch. And as a result, we can buy capabilities at lower cost, whether it's the orbital economy, whether it's putting astronauts in space, or more missions of science discovery. And now we're doing the same thing with the moon. So instead of buying 1 or 2 landers every few years, which no one can build a great business case around, we put out a demand signal for landers on the moon on a near monthly cadence starting in early 2027. This is how we help ignite the lunar economy.
What does this mean for American competitiveness, especially with China?
This is a race we can't afford to lose. I mean, we fall behind in this second space race. We may never catch up. So we're taking it very seriously. I will tell you, though, this is very different than July 20th, 1969, where in hindsight, after Apollo 17, no one's been back to the moon. The Chinese have a good plan right now. They're talking about before 2030. That means 2029. We're saying before the end of President Trump's term. That means success or failure in this great space race right now will be measured in months, not years. So we've got, thankfully, President Trump gave us a great mandate, the National Space Policy. We've got the Working Family Tax Cut Act, formerly known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. That was a $10 billion plus up in NASA. So we have the mandate, we have the resources, we have the talent, we have industry, and we have our international partners. I think we're going to succeed.
Going off of your point, President Trump signed an executive order on your first day mandating Americans on the moon by 2028 and a lunar base by 2030. The Artemis mission is on path to achieve those goals. Beyond national pride, what's the economic case for going back?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? So I said we can put out a demand signal for dozens of landers, right? Who's buying the 30th lander if it's not NASA? And we don't know the answer to that, but we're going to start. So it's a heck of a case right now. We're putting lots of landers, lots of rovers on the moon. We're going to experiment with power, comms. I mean, somebody is going to be the eyes and ears from an observation and telco perspective, if you will, for comms on the moon. So we're working on all that right now, and we hope someday in the future, whether it's mining helium-3 from the lunar regolith or 3D printing satellites for making AI data centers in space. We don't know what it is yet. We're going to do everything we can to put that lunar economy into existence and an orbital economy, because if we want that sci-fi future that we imagined as kids, it can't be perpetually funded by taxpayers. So we're grateful to work alongside industry. It's imperative to building out the moon base. There's going to be economic value. We're sure of it. There's going to be scientific value. There's going to be tech value out of this, because we're going to use the water ice in the moon to master the skills needed for going to Mars someday. And then there's inspirational value out of it. I mean, that's all the kids watching around the TV as missions like Artemis 2 happen that want to grow up and contribute, to the same adventure.
And you mentioned the technologies. NASA has an incredible track record of innovations that affect human life on Earth.
Yes.
Everywhere from the CAT scan to water filtration to memory foam. What is in the works technology-wise over the next 10 to 20 years that we're going to see that's going to affect industries and markets?
Oh, I mean, let's just start with launch. I mean, before we started to see those amazing, reusable SpaceX rockets, putting any mass in orbit was extremely expensive. I mean, $500 million a launch. Now that's come down materially, and you've got the next generation coming. So whether that's Starship from SpaceX or New Glenn from Blue Origin, I mean, rapid reusable heavy lift rockets can change the entire game. The analogy I like to use is, imagine in the 1980s, car phones. I mean, the cell phones were so big, you had to build them into the damn car, and people were like, oh, it was just for Wall Street traders or something. And now, like every teenager has got one, and some of the most valuable companies in the world that make life easier here on Earth are the software apps that are installed on them that bring you food at 2 in the morning, right? So like the fact that reusable launch is bringing down cost materially is going to create this, who knows, orbital economy at some day in the future. And I guarantee you it's going to make life better here on Earth. So whether it's, observation satellites for natural disasters, for agriculture, for predicting wildfires that are very costly, or flooding, we can do that with our technology. Or maybe it is mining helium-3 on the moon someday that will power a quantum future or fusion reactors on Earth someday.
A crewed Mars mission is no longer science fiction. It's in the roadmap. What comes next, and where's that gap between us and actually putting humans on Mars?
Yeah, so that's why I love working for President Trump, because not only did he say, pick up where Apollo 17 left off, go back to the moon, build the moon base, but he said, I also want to see you invest in the next giant leap capabilities for where we inevitably go next. And where we go next is Mars. And that's why, and I put it on the President Trump's desk yesterday in the Oval Office, we are building SR-1 Freedom, the first nuclear-powered interplanetary spacecraft. It's going to Mars. It's actually going to drop off 3 upgraded Ingenuity-class helicopters like I saw in your lobby here, and they're going to have ground-penetrating radar on it, and they're going to scout out future landing sites for astronauts, scout out water ice. Because in the not-too-distant future, we will be able to send humans, American astronauts, to Mars. The hard part, how do you bring them back? You're going to actually have to make your propellant on Mars to do so, and having nuclear-powered spaceships where we can put nuclear reactors on the surface of the moon to test it out, and then someday on Mars is how we're going to be able to undertake an inspiring, ambitious mission like that, kind of missions only NASA was capable of doing, and bring our astronauts home to tell us about it.
That's super exciting. The space economy is projected to hit $1 to $1.8 trillion by 2040. That's incredible. Break that down for us. Where does the money actually come from? Is it the satellites, infrastructure, tourism, manufacturing, or something that we don't even know yet?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think a lot of times, first of all, it's the jobs that go into supporting the space economy that's, is where we quantify it. And when you think about between the SLS rocket, that big rocket that sent Artemis 2 around the moon, you think about what SpaceX and Blue Origin doing, supported by huge workforces, Starlink in itself. So not only is it, the billions in revenue derived from, communication satellites, but obviously all the people that go into the factories that are just printing off, satellites that can be used again for observation communications, future space weather applications. I guess I would say, again, I am very sure that launch, observation, and communications have immense demand. With respect to the space economy. So when you say fast forward, 15 years, what would you be betting on the most that, there's going to be a lot of people lining up and a great revenue model associated with? It's launch, observation, and communications. The next big bet that's probably going to contribute a lot of jobs is where we're sending that demand signal right now, which is lots of landers, rovers on the surface of the moon, and whatever we can make out of that lunar regolith.
How do you make the ROI case to Congress and taxpayers who are skeptical about the funding?
Well, I think having a plan that all adds up to something, right? So I think going back to the moon is very important because we promised it to the taxpayers for 35 years. We put over $100 billion into it. And again, thanks to President Trump on his first term of focusing us with the Artemis program. And then second term, my first day on the job, giving a national space policy. It says, go back to the moon, build the moon base, right? But there is criteria associated with it. Scientific potential, economic potential, do something with lunar regolith. But where does it bubble up from there? work with the water ice, go to the South Pole, master the skills necessary so we can put the stars and stripes on Mars. So we're kind of continuing what is our destiny to venture out and explore the great unknown, but it's got a logical progression. The other thing I'd say is, look, we can do both. NASA's budget, it's like 0.25% of the discretionary budget here. So, it's a very small price to pay for all we may learn, the knowledge that we get from launching great missions of science and discovery like James Webb Space Telescope or rovers on Mars. There is economic potential. There's tech that makes life better here on Earth. And then there's the inspiration. I say it all the time, like, what price do you want to put on all the kids that are going to dress up as astronauts for Halloween after missions like Artemis 2? Some of these things are a price worth paying, and there's still plenty of resources left over to try and address some of the hardships that we live in today.
I was one of those kids. It's like, you've seen Earth from orbit twice. When you sit in the administrator's seat now, what's one thing that view has taught you that you carry with every decision you make?
Well, I certainly can appreciate the risk, right? I mean, whether you're, if you're putting an astronaut in low Earth orbit, it's a controlled explosion, 1.8 million pounds of thrust to accelerate that human being to about 17,500 miles an hour. That comes with risk. Now, to do what Artemis 2 did, that's 8.8 million pounds of thrust to put those astronauts 25,000 miles away, 25,000 miles an hour, 250,000 miles from Earth. There's a lot of risk that goes into that, and you want to make sure it's a risk worth taking. And I would say, exploring the worlds beyond ours, making humankind a true spacefaring civilization. Is a risk worth taking. But you want to understand all those risks. You don't want to take anything needlessly. You want to do everything you can to mitigate it. So I think I have a great appreciation for that. But I know everything that goes into those missions as well, the army behind those 4 brave astronauts on Artemis 2, and how they come together to make a mission like that possible. And I think it's helpful to understand that perspective. And I'll tell you one other thing, too. It is a lot easier to strap in on top of the rocket. That is way lower stress than to be on Earth responsible for the rocket. And that's what I was thinking when we sent Artemis 2 on their way.
When you leave this job and you look back, what's one thing that has to be true in order for you to consider it a success?
Well, it's 2 things I talk about all the time, because when I go around and I visit all the centers and I do town halls like crazy, I over-communicate and I want feedback from the workforce. And they always ask the question, what do you want your legacy to be? What's the big takeaway from all this? And I think they're always expecting me to say, like, America will return to the moon. Yeah, but that's a timing thing, right? That's like having a president that's supportive, that's having the money, the resources, and the technical means to complete that mission. To me, what I want to ensure happens is that we concentrate our resources back on the true needle-moving objectives, the kind of objectives that create the headlines like the last couple weekends, that gets people really excited, that advance humankind's ambitions in space. And I want to do everything I can to empower the best and brightest in the nation, to just clear out the needless bureaucracy, to liberate them from all the obstacles that impede progress. If you can do that, if we can put the money that we've been entrusted with by the taxpayers and empower the best and brightest, then returning to the moon and building a moon base is pale in comparison to what this agency will achieve in the decades ahead.
You're here, and I feel very compelled to ask. Answer this however you'd like. Are we alone in the universe?
Well, I would tell you that I have not, as the administrator of NASA, not seen any direct evidence that we have been visited by intelligent life or that. But I will just tell you, I mean, I think most people, when you look up at the night sky and think about what's out there and the possibilities, can't possibly imagine that we are alone. And I'd say it goes to the heart of what we try and do at NASA, which is to unlock the secrets of the universe and answer that question. Now, I would tell you, you put like a scientific hat on here and you listen to some of the brilliant researchers we have at NASA. We think if you go and retrieve those samples that we've collected on Mars and bring them back here and analyze them, better than 90% chance you can prove that at one point there was microbial life on Mars. That's a far cry away from the giant head, tentacle aliens on it. But that's interesting because that's on Mars. And we launched a mission to Europa Clipper to look for biosignatures. And we're launching a nuclear-powered octocopter to Saturn's moon of Titan, also to look for biosignatures. And what happens if you find them there? Because then that changes the game to, like, surely there must be life out there somewhere, to what if it's everywhere? And I don't think we're that far off from being able to answer those questions.
Mr. Administrator, thank you so much.